Hello folks, I hope that you're having just a great day today. Today we'll take a look at the 1979 book by Arthur C Clarke. This was his last Hugo winning novel, and also I think this was his only novella winning one. Actually, no, Rendezvous and Romney he also won a novella for too. So this is his second novella winning best novel of the year. Won 1980s. It was published, like I said, in '79. It won 1980s Nebula Award, but also won the Hugo Award too for best novel. Which those don't always line up. Sometimes the Hugo goes to a different place than the Nebula does. But in Arthur C Clarke's case, it was different here on Fountains of Paradise. This is actually my favorite novel by Clarke. I really do enjoy what he's doing with it. I enjoy the way that it opens up in the past, and then you will continue to see this sort of dichotomy as you see the world building of the location that has become incredibly important in the world over in the Indian Ocean, and as well as in this island that has become incredibly important in the world, and then going back and learning about the history of the island, who used to live here, what the religious faiths are, who's there now, and how this sort of religious faith has continued in this place. The island is basically a version of Sri Lanka that's basically more southern, located on the equator. It's a perfect location for building a new thing that is going to be built, and that is the space elevator. There is this guy who has this idea for a space elevator. He's done all the math, all the numbers. He works for the UN. Which has become much more of a galactic empire by now. Not a galactic empire, sorry. A solar system empire. It has Mars colonies, Earth colonies, moon colonies, colonies in the asteroids and other places and so forth. So by now it has become a major player in the solar system. It's the dominant force on the Earth and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of UN bureaucracy, that sort of thing that's happening. But it has this system of engineers. And our key engineer is going to be our major character for the story. He is also the guy who created this bridge that spans the gap from one place on one continent to another that people can ride their bikes on cars and trains over with in just a half hour, and they can get from one continent to another. He actually designed that in his past, and this is his idea is for this to be the last great thing that he does before he dies. He's past retirement age, but he wants to do this space elevator, which is set in this Sri Lanka-like island, although further south, which is the seat of a religious seat right next to it, and that is the ideal location for this space elevator on the world stage, which have of course put it on the map in a major way as the major thorough point for traffic of an interstellar nature. And there's a lot of politics that happen in this novel. It's rich. The world building in this novel is amazing, and it's very, very Arthur C Clarke. It starts earlier than you might think, and it's going to end later than you might think, and give you a complete and total picture. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey opens up with this monolith in the past with apes, and how the apes interact with this monolith, and then you move forward to the modern 2001, where you're seeing, you know, basically the future NASA, if you will, finding the monolith on the moon, and then you flash forward a couple of years later for the voyage to where you think this monolith had sent its beam over on a moon in the farther part of the solar system, and then you'll fast forward again to after that happens, and where the monolith actually came from and what they're trying to do. So there's 4 different stages, if you will. You might think it would just be stages 2 and 3. But in fact, Arthur C Clarke writes a first stage with gorillas and apes to set the stage, and then a 4th stage after the first 2, so that you understand where the novel went, and have some sort of historical context. And he does that with this too. He opens up with the past, hundreds of years ago. You learn about this kingdom, about this famous person who ruled it for a couple of decades, and he built these gardens while he was doing it. His name is Kalidasa. He's going to be the major mythical figure of this storyline, and you're going to explore what happened to Kalidasa while he was the ruler of this area, and you'll also find out what Kalidasa's folly was and why it was considered that way, and so forth. And that it's incredible, enriching how the world building that happens at the beginning, first couple of chapters, and then at the end, there's going to be world building that happens after the conclusion of the story. It's not going to be the conclusion of the story. You're going to get some more historical context, which is something Arthur C Clarke does, and I think he does very well. And again, I think this is my favorite novel by Arthur C Clarke, and I think he does it in this novel incredibly well. It's not just how to build a space elevator 101. which, you know, any science fiction writer who can write. And Arthur C. Clarke still approaches this as a science fiction writer. That's, you know, if you go back to my big three, that's how I kind of view him. He is the scientist of the big three. Isaac Asimov might have been trained as a scientist, but he was more of a social scientist with the way he approached his works. He looked at politics, political science, court cases. He has elections in his things, that sort of thing. He cares more about the social science that he writes about. And Robert Heinlein may have been trained in sciences too, but he writes about philosophy. Arthur C. Clarke's trained in science, he writes about science. His stuff is science focused. And so you're going to have a science a science take on building a space elevator. It's going to have a lot of science in it, just as a nature of Arthur C. Clarke. But that's the Fountains of Paradise for you. It's an incredibly strong novel. I've only read it once. I read it but I read it in like one day. I was so obsessed with it that I actually just knocked it out in a day. It took me about 10 hours total to read. But I'll go ahead and link you to it in the comments below so you can take a look at it. Have you read Fountains of Paradise? Have you ever heard of it? By Arthur C. Clarke. It is the final novel that he has that won a Hugo Award, won a Nebula Award. It's one of his signature works, but I think it's fallen off the map. I think most people remember Arthur C. Clarke's three novels: 2001: A Space Odyssey, Childhood's End, and Rendezvous with Rama. I think this has fallen off the map, and it shouldn't have. I think it's an incredibly well-written, well-articulated, well-crafted novel, and there's a reason it won a Hugo and a Nebula Award. Both. It just wasn't, a big hit with fans, but he didn't do anything new, so it only won the Hugo. It wasn't a writer who's doing something avant-garde, but it never hit with fans, and so it won both. Right? It is an incredibly well-crafted novel, and it's my favorite novel by Arthur C. Clarke. Fountains of Paradise for you. Have you read it? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please feel encouraged to hit that subscribe button, because there's going to be so many more reviews of these classics in fantasy, science fiction, and horror. And finally, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your day and watching my video all the way to the end. We all have so many things happening in our lives, so the fact that you spent this time with me is so humbling, and I really do appreciate that. So thanks again and have a great day.